Hey, C Suite Mamas. I'm so excited for you to check out the C Suite Mama podcast. I want to forewarn you, this is our first episode where we didn't have our guest in studio. She is actually joining us virtually. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties with sound, but I promise you, she is dropping so many nuggets. You want to listen to this entire episode. Get your notebooks ready. She drops gems. Hello, and welcome to the C Suite Mama podcast. So excited about today's guest. Not only is she just an incredible powerhouse woman, but she is also my good girlfriend and the godmother to my son, my dear friend, attorney Tamara Frazier. Thank you so much for being here, Tamara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to join you for this amazing series. I've been catching the replays and I'm just gleaning nuggets as I've been listening. So thank you for this space.
Thank you. That means so much. So, before we jump into our conversation, because I know you have tons of nuggets to share yourself, tell the audience about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your career journey.
Sure. So I'm a native of New York and I born and raised, left after school, came back after college because I didn't have a car or a money, and I worked for the city of Boston for 3 years. And during that time, I knew I wanted to go to law school. I know I had to make that choice while I had the right to do so.
Yeah.
So in doing so, I went back to school to get my law degree and my master's of urban planning. So I did 2 degrees in 3 years. So I'm barred in the state, but also cross-trained as an urban planner, which gives me a unique perspective of things. After law school, I ended up getting married and moving to the Albany area and had a myriad of professional experiences that have molded into the professional I am today, landed me here as senior for the last years. And it's been a journey, and I'm excited to just share some of the things I've learned along the way.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So, you have a wealth of experiences professionally. We know that our podcast and our community has a unique spin because we are focused on the motherhood side of
Mhm.
things. So, tell us about your kiddos and your role as a mom. Tell us a little about that.
Sure. So when I got married back in 2013, when I got married, my husband had 2 girls. So I have 2 bonus daughters. They're a bit older, so they were 17 and 15. And then as we got married, and then about 3 years into our marriage, I became pregnant with our first daughter, Madison, who was 7. And then a couple of years later, we had our fourth and final, Reagan, who is turning 4 this summer. We have 4 girls that all look like my husband. Very strong genes. But it makes for a life
Yes, absolutely. A
fun
house full of
discussions.
ladies. That's so exciting. So, I want to talk a little bit about transitioning roles with motherhood in mind. Transitioning into leadership roles while navigating motherhood absolutely has its own unique set of challenges. Can you talk a little bit about how motherhood has influenced your career decisions overall?
Ooh. So let me say that I never thought so it took a while for me to find my groove once I actually had a child of my own. So with my 2 boys, with them already kind of leaving the nest in a sense, it wasn't as if I had a lot to do in terms of having young kids. But once I had a new house, I had to really think more distinctly about what my career journey looked like. It just so happened when I became with Madison, I started a new job 6 months ago. Prior to that, I started the new job in November of 2015, and then she was born December of 16. And that's when the rubber mom guilt set in, trying to be a lawyer in a fast-paced environment like the Senate. New York was a lot. The summers helped, but definitely having more than one child, young child under the age of 4, helped me to think more critically about what is feasible for me and my family. And I have to admit, at times I wondered, am I too ambitious? Am I for the stars when I should be in a different stratosphere? But it took me pacing myself, talking to my mentors, thinking through what I really want in my career journey, and also having patience with myself as well.
That's awesome. I know on this podcast we've spoken a lot about the power of mentorship and leaning on some of your supports. Would you say that your mentors have been key in like helping you navigate the mom guilt piece of things?
Definitely.
Yeah,
I would say that mentors have helped me to think about how to negotiate future job offers, keeping a family in mind. They've helped me to think through what work life balance is like. And it's different for each family, I would say. I also have a ministry in my life. So I have to really think through what's feasible for me, what's not, being okay with saying no and saying with a smile.
yes,
It's not that I don't want to do it, it's that I have the capacity to do it at a level of excellence that I'm used to. And so it's a distinction. Also, along the way, I picked up who aspire to have families. You look to me and say, how do you do it? And I'm like, I'm doing it by myself.
yes, yes,
But I do it with grace. I do it for myself, patient, knowing I can't be everything to everyone 100% of the time, or else I'll lose myself.
for sure. Thank you so much for that. So we spoke about how your motherhood journey has kind of influenced your career choices. One thing that I always like to ask some of our C suite mamas: how has being a mom influenced your leadership style, especially as it relates to creating inclusive and supportive work environments for other moms that you may work alongside?
I would lean on the ideals of empathy, grace, respecting other viewpoints. Like when someone has more than one child, they're not the same child. They may have the same DNA coursing through them, same parents, similar parents. So I've also found that mothers bring a unique perspective to things, especially in the world that I've been in, which is human services. Um, we have to think through wraparound services differently, especially if that's your lived experience. Um, I feel like inclusive environments, especially for families, being flexible, and I feel like COVID has put us on that trajectory. My children have joined my homes. My children have come to school. My children have come to the Senate. My children have been there for negotiations. I think people just understand that you can't put aspects of your life in silos.
Right.
It's just not feasible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that so much. COVID has definitely caused us to make a shift in all of our relationships, um, especially as it relates to how we network and even our access to some of our support systems. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you have expertly navigated creating your support systems? I've watched you network. I've watched how you move. Talk a little bit about your approach to networking, building your support network, and kind of your strategy for getting that in place for you.
Ooh, so in terms of networking, I try to be friendly. I try to work the room. I try to see the people I know, but also try to meet at least 5 people that I don't know.
At least five. So you set a goal for yourself. I love that.
I set a goal because there's a reason why we're in the same space.
Yeah.
There's likely that you know somebody that I know, and they're just maybe you and I don't know each other, but I'm sure there's some synergy there. And it's not necessarily transactional. It could be just me learning that you are an expert in this space, and there may come a point in time where I may glean from you about what you do, And I feel like we're all interconnected, but we may not understand the extent of our connectivity. And so it's important for us to get to learn each other. Also, you never know who's watching you. And I'll say that because when I was recruited to come to SUNY, I was told your references checked out. I never gave them references.
Mm,
Who do you talk to? But it goes to show you never know how your aura, your work product speaks for itself.
yeah.
You never know how people are assessing you.
Yes.
And that's not to say that every review is going to be glowing because we're all different personalities, different people. We all go through different experiences. But when you start to get to a certain level in the C suite, you have to understand that sometimes references are verbal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always given on the paper.
Yes.
You would not believe the number of times that I've gotten phone calls from folks saying, "Hey, do you know this person? Like, what's the read down on them?"
Yep.
And people really will respect your opinion and say, you know what, they're good in XYZ. I know that they're working on ABD. I think they will be a good fit, or they may not be a good fit for this role. And you'll be surprised how sometimes that's how hiring decisions are made at this particular
Absolutely.
level.
Even in just how you show up in the room, right? Like you mentioned
Oh,
being
yeah.
friendly and smiling and being approachable and things that we might take for granted. Funny enough, on one of the social media pages for the C-Suite Mama, someone commented to the fact, well, I'm an introvert and I don't like to network and, whatever. But the networking opportunities, to your point, can very well speak as your own reference before you have to ever formally write down a reference on a job application. So that's
And
a
can
good
I
tip.
tell, and can I tell you, so a lot of time the networking events are at night. You've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning. You have put the kids on the bus. You may have worked out, you planning dinner, you doing 18 million things before you get to that networking event. So you're tired. You're emotionally and physically and mentally tired. But you just have to kind of muster up some gumption
Yeah.
and get through it. And I've learned that some receptions that I have they have not wanted to go or only go an hour, I end up staying much later because I meet someone that I've seen them around and had a chance to network or meet them. And you end up having the most amazing conversation. You exchange cards, like, let's do coffee. And then I've learned to do follow up immediately. Like the next day, I'm like, hey, what's up to see you last night at the X reception? Let's connect after X date. And that keeps me accountable to fostering those relationships.
I love that so much. On the podcast, we've spoken a lot about networking and those approaches, but I feel like you just dropped so many gems. So I hope the folks that are listening have, have written down some of these tools because we've spoken about the power of networking, but I don't know that we have really spoken about what happens after that. And so you have dropped a ton of gems. So thank you so much. That is great. We mentioned that you just took on a new title. Not, I shouldn't say a new role, because you've been with SUNY for a bit. You took on an additional title, I should say, as the executive director of the Black Leadership Institute. You were also serving as the deputy chief operating. Am I saying that right? Deputy chief operating officer for SUNY
Yes.
as well. Yes. So with your expanded role at SUNY, are there specific initiatives and programs that you kind of want to talk about that are relatable for our community?
Sure. So I will go on a few examples. Since I've been at SUNY, I've been privileged to work in different portfolios, mental health, also working with our EOCs across the state. And for me, with mental health, it was great to see the federal American Rescue Plan funds come through and seeing that money go to our campuses to help people know that it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
I had the chance to do a couple of interviews, and especially for mothers who are on our campuses or folks with young families that they need mental health resources, letting them know that their resources at our campuses help you get across the finish line. When I think about our EOCs, Education Opportunity Centers, we serve adult learners across our state. The typical profile for our EOC participants is single female, early 30s, of a minority background, sometimes with children. So I've become very concerned about our wraparound services, which includes childcare, transportation, mental health. So the deputy chief operating officer role is where I do the EOCs and I've done the mental health. When we talk about the BLI, that's leadership development for our professionals. But I do believe that talking about both subjects in different arenas gives people a different perspective because we have so many people coming through the doors of not just me, but other higher educational institutions, and they're not going straight out of high school. They have lived experience. When they come home, they can't just be by themselves. They have families to tend to. So we have to think about ways to support the family as they look to achieve their greater goals and dreams.
I love that. Now, I warned you I might have a curveball question, but
Sure.
as you are speaking, it always triggers some additional thoughts for me. As a person that works in the health equity space, and we know that, one of the social determinants of health really is economic stability. And so all the things that you are doing in the EOC space directly align with health equity. And so it's really, I take it as my responsibility to also use this platform to give information for current leaders as they are making institutional decisions, if you will. And so while we have folks who are listeners who are looking for information to further their career, for the mothers who are listening who are currently in leadership positions and making decisions, as you consider the participants of EOC, how can potential employers best support that demographic that is looking to enter the workspace?
Wow. I would say that employees have to be more realistic about who's coming in the door and knowing that you're going to have potential employees walk through your door that are from all walks of life. Everyone's resume is not going to be like it did 20, 30 years ago. There's going to be a lived experience that needs to come through in the cover letter or the interview. I think we dismiss resumes, cover letters out of bat because they don't look like what we're used to.
Yeah.
I think it's that same process through the HR process where you're thinking through what can this person bring to this organization that will help to move it forward. But that takes visionary leadership. That takes strategic leadership. That takes a more diverse community that can actually screen. If you may see something that I see, we cast a more inclusive net to bring more candidates.
I love that. Thank you so much. So we gave a little bit of advice for folks who are in leadership decisions and are making these decisions for their workplaces. We'll switch gears a little bit and give some of that advice for some new advice for moms and leadership roles or those aspiring to be. What kind of advice do you give about pursuing career advancement and personal growth while nurturing a family? I know you had that question of am I too ambitious during your own career journey, and so how have you kind of reconciled those thoughts, and what would you offer to moms considering the same?
I would say the importance of leadership really comes into play for career advancement. Sometimes we're at a job for a certain amount of time and we just think intuitively in our mind that we should be at a certain place, not realizing that there's still maybe some core competencies that we have not yet mastered, or there's things that we need to do to become more nimble in our job. So I would say pace yourself. Ask your mentors. Your mentors are there to give you unfiltered and unvarnished advice about where they think you could possibly land. Sometimes we like to skip, and when you skip, you fall
Yes.
because you're in a place that you're not exactly ready for. People don't realize that when you move from a deputy or associate position into being the head person in charge, you may think that the salary is nice, especially with inflation. You're just like, I just need more money coming into the house. But with that responsibility, the buck stops with you. You're getting called on more. You're being the spokesperson for your job. It's a lot of responsibility that may not be reflected on that job description.
Absolutely.
So you got to really weigh the cost of looking for forward career advancement. You have to balance it. You have children and you have special needs in your house, or do you know that you're about to enter a season of your life that will require more of you on the home front? So you got to really balance. Don't be afraid to ask about the organizational climate when you're looking at a new job. I've come to the place in my career that I ask those questions, and I was very blessed to come to SUNY and let it be a very family-centered place. I'll give an example. My first time job, when my boss came, met me, talked. She gave me my computer at a 9 o'clock meeting, hopped on, and then she said to me, so crystal clear to me, she said, we have a 5 o'clock meeting with the campus presidents about COVID reopening. She said, if you need to go grab your child, go do that and then hop on the Zoom call. And that just reaffirmed to me that she understood that I was balancing a family and work. I grabbed my kid, settled him in, and at 5 o'clock I was on the Zoom call with presidents to talk about plans from the governor, et cetera, et cetera. And even on that call, my first day, I don't even know if I should say something. I'm like, no, they gave me a seat at the table. There's a reason I'm here. I gave my advice about communications. And I was like, yeah, that's good idea, Tamara. And I'm just like, this is where I belong.
Yeah.
Because I was able to stay professional, balance the child and the job. And I was like, this is really what I wanted to be. This is good. This is what I need at this point.
That is so beautiful. Obviously, haven't been privy to your career journey personally. I just love to hear that you kind of found this beautiful work life integration, this sweet spot, which is a perfect segue to the next question. In terms of work life integration, what practices have you found to be most helpful in ensuring that you're present, both at work and at home? Aside from having an employer who kind of offers space for that, what are you implementing personally for yourself?
So I'm not the best, but I'm constantly refining my practices. So I would say on the way to dropping Maddie off at school, that's when we call my brother or other folks. Get her to school by 8. We try to connect, we talk, we do songs, we do our Bible verses. I get to work between 8 and 8:30 unless I have an early meeting. I try to be out by 5 at the latest. I try not to do work calls on the way home unless it's pressing. I try to let that 5:30 to 7 o'clock block be home. If unless it's something time sensitive, I'll let my husband know like I got to do something. And he'll watch the kids for a little bit. If there's anything I need to get done that night, I try to do it after my kids are a bit.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. I think my kids understand a lot of Zooms, but I try to balance it. I try to let them know I'm just has to talk to somebody really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I do have 2 phones, so that kind of keeps it secret. I have a personal phone and a work phone,
So it
and
sounds
I
like it's a
just let
lot of
people know that
boundary
I can't
setting.
talk right now, but I'll call you back. Another tip that helps is even if emails come through after 5 o'clock, I might still read it and respond quickly, but also put it back on unread so I can go back to it in the morning to give a more thoughtful or more nuanced response if it's needed.
I like that. I'm stealing that last tip with putting the email back on unread. I love these conversations that I have with the C-suite mamas because although I'm in a C-suite position myself, I feel like with every conversation I learn something new that I can take away to, just support my journey myself. So thank you. I love that little tip. I'm going to jump to a different question here that we had. You earlier on in the conversation mentioned that when you met your husband, he had 2 children, and so you all have a beautiful blended family. Me coming from a blended family myself, I know it has its own set of unique experiences and challenges. This is not an area that we've had the opportunity to speak on a whole lot on the C Suite Mama just yet. Can you share any of your personal insights and advice on integrating and nurturing relationships in a blended family? You know, this is a common thing now, and so I think that would be helpful for our listeners to hear.
Sure. So I think my experience, I came at the cusp of my two older bonus girls becoming adults. So I have my second oldest is still with us, and she's a great nail tech. She has her own, like, she's almost like a self-made entrepreneur. Um, and so I just think they just know I'm always doing something. They know I'm traveling. They help out. And then my oldest is married with her own son. So we have a little grandson, and she helps. Like if both Jamar and I have to work and actually be in the office that day, like sometimes she'll watch Maddie. So they just do when they need to, or when asked to. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not that big of a hurdle to overcome because of the age difference.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the age difference probably helps a lot too. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that bit of a personal touch to the conversation. So I'm doing something new on this episode. We're
Mhm.
gonna do a quick rapid fire round for the working mom before we wrap up. So just a few questions, a few fun questions to let folks
Mhm.
get to know you a little bit. So,
Okay.
we are going to focus a little bit on the joys and the juggling acts of being a working mom. Give me one word to describe motherhood.
Exhilarating.
And what's the most unexpected skill your career has taught you that applies to motherhood?
Mm. How to be flexible.
I love that. What's your go to activity for family time?
We're pretty chill. Watching Bluey, Disney Plus.
Love it.
But can I add something? I know, take time to unplug. Earlier this month, we took the girls to Florida for a surprise trip. I told everyone I am not answering my phone. My out of office said, if this is about this, talk to this person. If it's about that, talk to that person. I didn't answer emails. I didn't answer calls for a good 4 to 5 days,
I
and it was
love
well
that.
needed.
I'm so
So
bad at that.
find your go-to family time, whatever that is, but literally unplug.
I love that.
It's necessary. You don't realize how much your mind is always going.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so bad at that. And then our last rapid fire question:
Mhm.
what's one piece of advice you give your younger self about balancing your career and family?
It's totally doable, but you have to layer it with flexibility and a sense of grace towards yourself.
I love that. That's a good mic drop, T. Thank you. Totally doable, C suite mamas. Yes. Thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation. I'm so grateful to have shared this space with you. You and I, we have kind of served as like peer supports, peer mentors for one
Mhm.
another in our own journeys to the C suite. So I'm just gracious and grateful to have you here, really breaking down your journey for folks who don't know you. I think it's just such a powerful story. I'm so proud, so incredibly proud of the
Oh,
success that you have had in your career. You are absolutely amazing. So just thank you.
oh, so
Thank you for
sweet.
this time. This is wonderful. I will make sure that I share Tamara's LinkedIn information for those who are interested in learning more about her career journey. I know that she is open to serving as a virtual mentor for the future attorneys of the world, for the future urban planners of the world. So I'll make sure that I make it very easy for you to connect with her. Thank you again, Tamara Frazier Esquire, for being here with me today. You are so appreciated.